There comes a moment in life when the relentless search for answers begins to feel exhausting. We try to decipher the meaning of things. Why someone left, why something went wrong, why life seems to follow such mysterious paths. We want to understand everything, control everything, predict the next step, but the more we try to comprehend, the more the ground seems to slip away beneath our feet. Alan Watts used to say that life is a game that cannot be won, only danced. And perhaps that's what we forget. Life is not a logical problem, it's a living experience. While the ego tries to dominate the flow, the soul only wants to move with it. The ego seeks answers, the soul seeks trust. This need to understand is, in truth, a disguise for fear. Fear of emptiness, of the unpredictable, of what cannot be explained. But mystery is not the enemy. Mystery is the teacher. It teaches us to hear what cannot be said, to see what can only be felt. Today, perhaps your greatest lesson is not in understanding but in allowing. Allow life to surprise you. Allow the unknown to teach you. Allow the mystery to guide you. Chapter 1. The Invisible Prison of Control. There is a prison that almost no one notices, and paradoxically, it's the one that seems to offer the most safety. It's built from plans, expectations, and attempts to predict and understand what's to come. We call it control, but what do we actually control? Time, people, emotions. None of these belong to us. Even so, we build routines like walls, decisions like shields, explanations like armor. And when life insists on contradicting us, we react with frustration, fear, and resistance. The ego believes that if it can understand how life works, it will be able to master it. But what the ego forgets is that life is wild. It's not an equation, it's a forest. Alan Watts said that control is a comfortable illusion. The harder you try to hold water in your hands, the faster it slips through your fingers. In Jungian psychology, this controlling impulse is born from fear of the shadow, of what is uncertain, ambiguous, uncontrollable. And what we repress, the unconscious, turns into destiny. True suffering does not lie in what happens, but in the resistance to accept what happens. We live in a constant state of tension, wanting things to move according to our rhythm, our logic, our desire. But control is not power. It is a prison. Freedom is born when we understand that the flow of life is wiser than our plans. Only when we stop trying to manipulate the river do we truly begin to navigate it. Chapter 2. When mystery reveals itself through chaos. Chaos is mystery's favorite disguise. It shows up in ruptures, in losses, in the unforeseen, and suddenly everything that once felt secure falls apart. It's the moment when the ground opens and the ego screams, "Why?" But in the silence that follows the scream, something sacred reveals itself, because chaos in essence doesn't destroy. It reorganizes. Every deep transformation is born from an apparent collapse. A butterfly would never understand the cocoon, and perhaps it doesn't need to. What seems like disorder to the ego is birth to the soul. Jung said, "Where there is destruction, there is also the promise of new creation." Chaos is the portal through which mystery enters, tearing the skin of control so that consciousness can breathe. Notice this. When something slips out of your control, it's life asking you to trust. When a plan fails, it's mystery whispering, "There's another path you can't see yet." The mind fears the unpredictable, but the heart recognizes in it the voice of expansion. Nature understands this effortlessly. The fire that destroys the forest also fertilizes the soil. So it is with us. Every loss, every collapse, every uncertainty makes space for something more authentic to be born. Trust doesn't arise when everything is in order, but when we learn to dance even amid disorder. Chapter 3. Alan Watts and the Wisdom of the Dance. Alan Watts reminds us, life is a game that cannot be won, only danced. And in that simple phrase lies one of the greatest spiritual truths ever spoken. Because to dance is the opposite of control. In dance, movement is spontaneous. The body responds to the music without needing to understand the melody. So it is with life. It doesn't ask for logic. It asks for presence. Watts said that human suffering is born from trying to make life a task rather than an art. We want goals, results, formulas. But existence is not a problem to be solved. It's a symphony in progress. Quantum physics shows us that uncertainty is not a flaw. It's a foundation. Reality only takes shape when it is observed, and the observer changes the result simply by being present. This means that mystery isn't out there. It's within us. We are co-creators of the unknown. Living is dancing between the visible and the invisible, between what we can understand and what we must simply feel. When fear leads, the dance becomes tense, rigid, mechanical. But when we let go, when we surrender our steps to the rhythm of life, something magical happens. The universe begins to guide us, and in that moment, control loses its meaning. Share in the comments. What are you trying to control that you could already let go of? Chapter 4. The Act of Trust, Surrendering and Observing. Surrender is not giving up. It is spiritual maturity. It's when the soul, tired of fighting against the current, finally decides to float. To surrender is not to let it go, but to let it be. It's the silent gesture of someone who has understood that there is a greater intelligence guiding everything, even that which the ego still cannot comprehend. Alan Watts said, "Faith is the act of letting yourself fall and trusting that there is something there to catch you." And that is exactly the invitation of this chapter. Surrender and observe. Because when you surrender, the universe reveals. When you observe, life speaks. Practice the exercise, surrender and observe. Throughout the day, ask yourself these 3 questions. What am I trying to control right now? What would happen if I simply trusted? What is the mystery trying to teach me through this? Then perform one real act of trust each day. It could be choosing not to check your phone for validation, not anticipating a response, not insisting on solving something that needs time. Observe what happens when you stop forcing, when you simply allow. This simple, repeated gesture changes your vibrational field, because trust is not built through theory, but through experience. With each act of surrender, you strengthen an invisible bridge between yourself and the universe. And little by little, you discover that life doesn't need your constant interference to flow. It only needs your presence. Chapter 5. Rebirth through surrender. There is a moment, almost imperceptible, when fear turns into relief. It's when, after so much resistance, something within us simply lets go. And in that silent act, a new version of being is born. Surrender is the birth of freedom. Jung said, "What you resist persists. What you accept transforms." When we stop fighting the mystery, we begin to participate in it. The mind, once restless, begins to listen. The heart, once tense, begins to expand. Life, once chaotic, reveals a harmony that was always there, merely hidden beneath the need for control. Surrender is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is understanding that existence is a choreography of invisible forces acting even while we sleep. The sun rises without our command. The heart beats without our permission. Life renews itself without our interference. At the very moment you surrender, you realize you've always been guided, and what once seemed like losing control reveals itself as a reunion with the flow. The butterfly doesn't need to understand flight. It simply trusts its wings. So it is with the spirit when it surrenders to mystery. It becomes light, radiant, awake. Surrender is the beginning of true strength, the strength to be at peace with what is, and to allow the unknown to reveal its hidden purpose. Chapter 6. The silence of mystery and the wisdom of the soul. After control dissolves and surrender takes place, something arises that cannot be described, only felt. It is an inner silence, as if life itself were breathing within you. Nothing needs to be explained because somehow everything already makes sense. This is the space where mystery reveals itself not as a threat, but as a loving presence. Quantum physics calls it the field of possibilities. Mystics call it consciousness. But in essence, it is the same, a place where everything is connected, where nothing is ever lost. When you surrender, you realize that you were never separate from the whole, only distracted by fear. Jung described the unconscious as a symbolic ocean, and we, small islands of consciousness, trying to decipher its tides. But there are moments when, instead of trying to understand the waves, we simply become one with them. And that is where the miracle happens. Trust becomes a natural state. The mind becomes the servant of the soul, no longer its tyrant. You begin to live in harmony with the invisible rhythm that has always guided the universe. Nothing is lost, nothing is wrong, everything is dance, everything is flow, everything is mystery in motion. Conclusion: the mystery is your teacher. In the end, perhaps all wisdom comes down to a simple gesture, to breathe and trust. Because life never promised to be understood, only to be lived. And the more we try to decipher it, the farther we drift from what truly matters, the direct experience of being here, now. The mystery is the teacher that doesn't speak, but teaches in silence. It reveals itself in pauses, in coincidences, in unexpected encounters, in losses that open new paths. When we stop demanding that everything makes sense, meaning finds us, and what once seemed like disorder unveils itself as part of a greater harmony, one the ego could never orchestrate. Alan Watts said, "It is impossible to drown in a river if you let yourself float," and perhaps living is exactly that, allowing yourself to be carried by the current of existence with open eyes and a trusting heart. You don't need to understand the dance, you only need to feel the rhythm. Today, allow yourself to rest in not knowing. Let life surprise you, because every moment is a revelation in disguise, every mystery an opportunity to awaken. If this message touched something within you, like this video, share it and comment, what are you trying to control that you could already let go of? Remember, the ego seeks to understand, but the soul seeks to trust. And it is in trust that we find the true sanctuary within.